Welcome to Hypnotic Authenticity. This is a place to reflect, a place to unwind perhaps, to understand yourself a little better, and to gently reshape the patterns that guide your life. A little bit like a conversation between you and your deeper self. So I'm offering a sprinkling of hypnosis, insight, some meditative guidance, and it's all going to be woven throughout a deep sense of practicality. So that if I do my job well, each episode is going to help you feel more grounded, also more open, and more authentically you. So if you're ready, let's begin. Have you ever felt overwhelmed by the chaos of daily life? Perhaps right now, are you feeling a little bit overwhelmed and looking for solutions? I'm going to offer you some techniques that will allow you to harness the power of mindfulness to bring about a state of inner peace, to center yourself. And I'm going to do this from my personal perspective because I have gone through this process. And I have to say, I am quite skeptical. Mindfulness is one of those things which is quite fashionable. It's been fashionable for the last few years, and I'm always rather suspicious about things that are fashionable. So what I would suggest to you is if you have a similar kind of skepticism, don't take my word for it, but do try the techniques that I'm going to suggest to you and see what you conclude as a result. Okay. So let's kick off with what is mindfulness. Okay. So for me, mindfulness is finding a way through the noise, through maybe a very slight sense of panic or electricity which is going on in your mind, a distractedness which is going on in your mind, a lack of focus, and bringing you back to be more grounded in who and what and where and when you are. When people get caught up in a sense of overwhelm, which leads to anxiety or stress or panic or fear, we trigger this fight, flight, freeze response, and we go into, well, firefighting mode, emergency mode. And so the idea of being composed is very, very hard because you're trying to run away from some implicit perceived danger. What mindfulness is doing is giving you a way to draw yourself away from that fear point and focus on something else, and then notice what you notice. And so bring about a state of calmer serenity, let's say. So how do you do that? And if the thing is, you see, it's all very well talking about this from a position of calmness. But if you are currently in a state of overwhelm, it doesn't matter how much someone tells you to meditate and go and empty your mind. You can't do it, right? Because there are more pressing things in your mind. So what I've found as the most useful parts of mindfulness are the ones which force you actually to focus on something else instead, and to receive the serenity, to receive the calming groundedness as a side effect of that, rather than pursuing it in itself, if that makes sense. So how can you do this? There are lots and lots of ways, but let's just give you five. Okay. Number one, the most important one, the one that comes up all the time in all the literature, is breathing. Follow your breathing. If you're stressed, if you're overwhelmed, it's quite likely that your breathing is shallow, that you're not accessing your diaphragm. Simply breathing in to the count of 4 and breathing out longer to the count of 6 or to 8 can activate the parasympathetic nervous system so that you will actually bring about a physiological, slower state of calm. But also what it does is that it allows you to focus on the breathing. So rather than focusing on the panic or the noise or the overwhelm or whatever, you have a single thing to focus on. So if you simply focus on each breath, the breath that you take in, and if it's hard to focus on something which is a little bit airy, focus on the temperature of the air that you breathe in through your nostrils and notice the temperature of the air that you're breathing in through your nostrils. Breathe in through your nose, breathe out through your mouth. As you breathe in, count to 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, something like that. Notice what you notice, pause, keep that breath for a moment, however long it feels comfortable, and then breathe out for 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Maybe focusing on the breath, maybe focusing on the temperature of the air as you're breathing it out. Promise you, if you do that 2 or 3 times, your body will already have calmed down. You're teaching your mind that because you're breathing slowly, your body must be at ease, therefore your mind has less need to panic. Okay, so it's a circular feedback loop which is beneficial. So that one can be incredibly useful. And you can do that one pretty much anywhere, and you can practice it and you can get better at it. As I say, when you're in a state of overwhelm, your breathing tends to be shallow. So by doing this, you can actually, you can harness your diaphragm. You can even, if it helps, put the palm of a hand on your stomach and observe your diaphragm. Because strangely, when you breathe in, your diaphragm should expand, and then as you breathe out, your diaphragm should compress. Yeah. But if you're in a state of panic, it might be doing the opposite of that. So that can be very, very useful as a way of bringing about that state of focus. So that's one. Here's one that I love. Take a small piece of dried fruit, a sultana, a little piece of cranberry or something, in one of these little bags of trail mix. Look at it, observe the color, observe the texture in your hand, observe the temperature between your fingers. Look at it as if you were going to remember what it looked like to the point where you could describe it to someone else. And then when you're there, pop it in your mouth. Very, very slowly. Don't chew it at all. Just allow yourself to explore that piece of dried fruit with your tongue. Notice the texture, notice the flavors, and allow the flavors the time to develop. Do not chew on it. Do not swallow it. Just luxuriate in the experience of that tiny piece of dried fruit. And I promise you, you can do that for 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes, exploring and absorbing these nuances. And that can be an immense voyage of discovery because it's so absurd, because normally we just kind of eat, consume, put aside, go on and do our things. Same thing as the breathing. What you're doing is you're giving yourself time to slow down and look after yourself and notice what you notice, right? So you're not bringing a sense of expectation. You're just going in with a sense of curiosity, right? And seeing where that goes. That can be fantastic. I'll explain to you afterwards why they're fantastic. Third one that I discovered that came from Tony Robbins, in actual fact. He's got this delightful little video where he tells people to basically, when they wake up, just put their shoes by the side of the bed. Wake up, put your shoes on, get outside the door, and start chanting to yourself, "I love my life." Which sounds utterly ridiculous. But if you do it, you're breathing. And then you're building into it, "I love my life," right? You can't help but notice the sense of absurdity about that. So it lifts your spirits in some ridiculous form anyway, even if you just feel nonsensical. But then the most important thing that comes after it is, having done that for a few minutes, it's to start naming, either out loud or in your mind, the things that you are grateful for. And so mindfulness is one of the vehicles into mindfulness is noticing what you're thankful for. And no matter how tough your life is, there are always things to be thankful for. People that the sunlight, the blue sky, the birds in the trees, the activity in the city, the fascinating features of other people's face, some kind gesture that someone did to you at some time in the past. There are always things that you can be grateful for. And when you start to notice them, when you start to look for them and to express them, you'll actually notice there are more and more things, no matter your current state, that you can be grateful for. Doing so expands your story beyond its current kind of block. Doing so tends to expand your forehead. You tend to reduce the stress which is trapped inside your physiology, and you tend to open up. Your heart feels more open. Your mind feels more open. You feel more connected with whatever you may choose that to be, the environment, the universe, other people, the breath in the air, whatever it may be. But you're expanding yourself outside of your kind of trapped state of panic. So it also affects your physiology, calms you down, brings a sense of serenity. Okay. Number 4, and this one I love too. And this might be a little bit uncomfortable, but I heartily recommend it. Give yourself 5 or 10 minutes to just look in the mirror. Look at yourself in the mirror. Find a moment when there's nobody around and just stand or sit in front of the mirror and look at yourself. Look at yourself in the eyes. Don't say a word. And just keep looking at yourself in the eyes. And keep looking at yourself in the eyes. And if you're like me, you'll notice a shift in your chest, which transfers down to your stomach. And you might even want to shed a tear, because it's an extraordinary experience to look yourself in the eyes. And after a minute or two of doing it, you'll start to notice the features of your face. You'll start to move away and notice your cheeks and your jaw and your mouth and the position of your eyes and your hairline and the tenderness in the face or the tension in the face. And the more you look at it, the more comfortable it starts to feel, the more it starts to feel like you, let's say. That can be a tremendous way of looking after yourself and bringing about a state of self-acceptance. Not only self-awareness, but forgiveness, right? People tend to expect a massive amount of themselves, and they tend to overestimate the amount that they can achieve in a very short space of time and underestimate the amount that they can achieve in a long space of time. Doing this allows you to forgive yourself. It allows you to be a member of the human race. It allows you to make mistakes. It allows you to start to love yourself, in actual fact, to be thankful for yourself, to give yourself a break, to get back on your own side, to be your friend again. The whole process is one of reassessing what you thought you were. And I leave that at that, in actual fact, because your conclusions are going to be your conclusions, not mine. And that can be tremendously moving. Another one that personally I love, because if you've watched any of my videos, you'll know that I am into hypnosis. So one that I find as a very, very useful vehicle into hypnosis, but it doesn't need to be, it can just be a mindfulness technique, is basically you use your 2 index fingers, your 2 first fingers, and you put them out, so they're going to be down at my belly button level, but you put them out facing forwards, pointing forwards. Okay, so for me, they're down here. And they're about that far apart, okay, about 10 centimeters apart. I guess that must be about 4 inches, something like that, if you're into inches. Forgive me if I'm wrong on that. I don't think in inches. So these two fingers, they're horizontal, kind of parallel with the ground, and your fingertips are pointing forwards. Both index fingers are pointing forwards. And all you need to do is focus on both of them, which sounds absurd because they're far apart. And so you end up looking between the two of them, and with your peripheral vision, you kind of see both of them. And what I want you to do, so you start by focusing on all of the finger. And as you do so, if that finger is pointing with about the pressure that you might use to turn the switch of a light switch on, then you might notice a tingling sensation around the finger, or you might notice your pulse in the fingertip, but you're going to notice something. And you see, as I do that, I'm already taking in a deep breath and feeling a sense of groundedness, because it takes time to look at both fingers at the same time and to notice your internal experience. Because as soon as you start to notice your pulse in the fingertips, well, then you're having a bodily experience. You're noticing your feelings. And then when you're ready, rather than placing your attention on your fingertips, just place your attention a couple of centimeters in front of both fingertips. And if you're like me, that brings a tremendous sense of calm because there's nothing there to focus on. And so you've brought your focus to one thing in particular, you've forgotten about everything else, and then you let go of that one thing in particular. And you end up with a tremendous sense of calm, a tremendous sense of serenity. No matter how much noise was there in the background, you found a place of peace. And you can follow that place of peace. You can scan your body when you're there. You can notice which part of your body is then the most calm, the most peaceful, because there's always a place inside your body which is most peaceful. There's a lot of ways that you can do it, but the point is, having done any of those, you have led yourself to a point where the chatter, the panic, the noise, the electricity in your mind has calmed down. And you can then observe what you observe. So rather than being caught up in the overwhelm and nonsense and noise of now, you're grounding yourself. You're bringing yourself back to a state of what it is to be you, what it is to be a human being, what it is to have feelings, to notice those feelings, to become more deeply connected with yourself, to relate to yourself rather than judge yourself, as a simple example. You're starting to respond rather than to react on impulse, and you're starting to, probably the word is forgive yourself. Probably self-acceptance is at the root of that journey. So any of those techniques actually are transformative because they bring about very rapidly, because as soon as you start to practice these, you can notice how quick they can become. They bring about a calmer, more centered you almost immediately. This is the sort of thing you can do on a 5-minute bus journey, right? It's incredible. You might find yourself wanting to have a dialogue with yourself whilst going through this process. If so, just be kind. Just be kind with yourself. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I didn't know. Thank you. Go back to the gratitude. Look out at the world. I love you. Look at your feelings. I love you. Look at your fellow man. I love you. You can even take away the I and the you. Love. It's incredibly grounding, incredibly connecting, and you bring about a sense of pure relationship with yourself. So rather than being a brain transported by a body, you're an organism. You are a complete organism. And that is where your core is. That is where your anchor is. When you discover that, you don't get swayed in the wind by all the noise which comes along. You can relate to yourself. Even speaking of this brings up an amazing sensation inside of myself. So I hope some of that is useful. Okay, these are techniques, right? Now, to go back to what I said at the beginning, mindfulness is not the end game, because anxiety or stress or overwhelm are not the problem. They are the manifestation of the problem. They're the symptom which comes out. So you might think that you need to fix your anxiety. You might think that you need to fix this sense of overwhelm, but they're a result of something deeper. So the reason why mindfulness works, the reason why it's the beginning and not the end, is because once you have grounded yourself, once you have quietened the panic, the anxiety, the chatter, once you feel more like you, if you can utilize that and you know that you have that on demand, then you can feel a sense of self-assuredness, yeah, a sense of self-trust. You can begin to trust yourself. You can begin to trust your feelings because you know that you can harness these techniques to bring yourself back to core when need be. It's only at that point that you feel safe enough to start examining your demons, to start examining the catastrophes, the fears which are behind, to start to take responsibility rather than to react on impulse to the first fear which shouts loudest. So it's a tremendous vehicle to get you to the point where something like personal development, self-awareness, self-exploration is actually possible. So it is the beginning of the journey, is what I'm saying. I heartily recommend you to try out these techniques. They are fantastic. They are the thin end of the wedge. They begin to open you up. And the thing is, a mind expanded cannot snap back. So once you have these techniques, they're there for life. Okay. After that, Lord knows what you start to explore later, because suddenly you're in a state where you're able to sit with yourself. So you can start reading books and absorbing them and enjoying them and learning from them because your mind's not going ta 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 anymore. Or, for me personally, I started to discover things like coaching and hypnotherapy. Mind blowing, but further down the line, okay? First thing on the line is getting to mindfulness. If you really, really enjoy that, expand it to the point of meditation. So when you found that place of quiet, when you focused on one thing so particularly, let it go. And then just sit there with yourself with nothing and notice what you notice, in the full knowledge that sometimes thoughts are going to come through your mind. But when they do, it's just like, okay, fair enough. And you pat them away and go back where you were. End result is you're a better friend to yourself. End result is you feel secure inside your skin. End result is you trust yourself. End result is the world starts to become amazing again. You start to feel connected with things again. You feel safer. You feel more composed. You feel less scared or angry or frustrated. You understand that not only are you going through stuff, but that everybody else is going through stuff. And so there is a sense of context to the way that you are thinking, the way that other people are thinking, the way the world starts to rotate and evolve. There's less need to be right. There's less need to be understood because you understand yourself. There's less need to push against the system. Can you imagine all this comes from a technique which is a couple of minutes long? Thank you very much for watching. I'll leave it at that. If that is of interest, subscribe to my other videos. Some of them are far longer, but they're all focused around ways to help you become a better friend to yourself. Okay. If some of these work better than others, then let me know in the comments down below. If you have experiences that I haven't actually even touched upon, let me know, right? I don't like to do this as a one-way stream. I love to do this as a two-way conversation. So please get in touch. If you don't feel comfortable writing things on YouTube, send me an email. You can probably find it in the bio of my page, and write me an email. Or even better still, if there's something in particular that you're looking for, set up a conversation with me. I do 20-minute clarity consultation chats for absolutely free with anybody, and who knows, it might change your life if I'm doing a good job. All right, take care. Bye. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If it resonates with you, then follow my podcast. I would also personally be really grateful if you might wish to leave a quick rating. It genuinely helps others to discover the podcast. If you personally would like more guided meditations, you want some deeper insights, you'll find all my links in the description. If you prefer a more visual boost, then you might want to check out my YouTube channel called Authentic Life Hypnosis. And if you're looking to do some deeper work that goes beyond one-way audio, then obviously you're very welcome to reach out. Equally, if you have any questions, I'm here to help. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.